if you can picture the landscape, Derbyshire is higher than Nottinghamshire, and if I said in the late 1700s, early 1800s, when there was working coal seams in Derbyshire, they could be as shallow as 18 to 20 metres that they were working in Derbyshire. The deeper seams could have been 100 metres deep. And they were all mined prior to Nottinghamshire being mined, if you like. Annesley were probably the first pit in the Lean Valley to be sunk in the 1860s, 1862, 1864. Annesley were the first one. Prior to that, all the coal had been fetched from Derbyshire, and they fetched it from where it was shallower.
Right.
But as you come this way, the coal seams go deeper and deeper. So many of the coal seams were named in the Derbyshire area. And Newstead's first seam that they worked was the Top Hard. I can't tell you the exact depth off the top of my head, I'm not quite certain, but I can assure you the Top Hard seam is mentioned in Derbyshire, and it might only be 100 or 150 metres deep, where in Nottinghamshire it might be 300 metres deep or 400 or whatever. So there is definitely a tilt in the seams.
Yeah.
The last seams that were worked near the surface in Nottinghamshire that I can remember were the Portland collieries, which are on the site of where Bentinck Colliery was. I think Portland collieries had about 7 shafts, number 1 up to number 7, and they worked in the vicinity of each shaft, and they'd be working a shallower seam. When they excavated, when they did the open cast where the Bentinck Void is now, which is into the M1 embankment, they went into old coal workings. So you can see that even in this area, as close as just north of Annesley Woodhouse, there was work in reasonably shallow seams. But when you get down into the Lean Valley, which includes Kirkby Summit, Annesley, Newstead, Limby, Hucknall, Bestwood, Babington, all them pits would be a lot deeper.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of the names, because David said nobody really knows, he says
no, I mean whoever named them. We just inherited the names from previous generations. I would think that something like Top Hard meant it was a seam of coal close to the surface that was very hard. It may have been very good for certain functions. Different grades of coal, some they use for power stations. You can virtually burn dirt in power stations. You don't need a top grade coal, but for producing steam you probably need a top grade coal. For locomotives and steam engines you probably need another name of coal. So why they were called that, but I can only think Top Hard or Low Bright. The coal must have been of a bright texture, and it was a deep seam, so it was called Low Bright. I Main, there could have been a Low Main, and they named 2 seams, I Main, Low Main, but they lost in the of history there, or the naming of them. But you'll find very often that in pit villages, once the pit's shut, they'll use a name for a street name or things like that. I can't remember what the walks are called now on the South Pit tip at Newstead, but I seem to think that they resemble some colliery terms. They'd got names at one time, those walkways. You'd have to research that yourself.